welcome to Optimize Your Body with Martin Silva, where we talk raw, uncut facts to truly help you optimize your body. Yo, Sam, thank you very much, mate, for coming down today. Really appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me, man.
Oh, mate, it's a pleasure. But, so I'd just like you, if you can, just tell us a little bit more about who you are. Obviously, you're representing Livinorg, and you also have your own mental health awareness group, just Sam Webb, right? So bottom line is you're doing great things, and I saw you on Instagram, and I heard about you through a client on another podcast, and it's close to the heart for me, this kind of stuff, because I know people have been affected by mental health issues and whatnot. So if you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself, please, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
These things can make a massive difference, especially for people from all walks of life that listen.
Mm-hmm.
Living started in 2013 after the death of a good friend. He took his life the night of September 15 of 2013, and Casey and myself co-founded Living soon after Dwayne's passing, and it rocked the community in more ways than one, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it, man. It was from an outside looking in, a young, charismatic, funny, cool guy that everyone liked to be around. Up and left the world. I mean, this happens on a daily basis, so there's thousands and thousands of Dwaynes in that story that exist as we speak right now, and we're just trying to do the best that we can to make a difference and to break the stigma that surrounds mental health.
Of course. Oh man, that's a really sad state of affairs, and that's how I heard about you. I heard the story like you just told me then, and mate, it's so alarming because there's so many guys suffering around the world, and there's so much stigma attached to obviously now with guys like yourself, and creating the movement that you have in terms of raising awareness and just making guys aware that actually they're not the only ones suffering. It's actually a lot more common than people think, and it's just great that you're you're doing what you're doing. So that's awesome, man. But I was just going to say about the next question. I was just going to say about how I've been affected, basically, and I had my friend on the show, and he has created his own awareness group in the UK. It's called Protectors, and
that's cool.
Quite a catchy name. But he's just much like yourself. He's just he was actually suffering himself for years. And long story short, he was suffering with really bad depression for about 6 years. He was on the verge of taking his own life, and then he started up Protectors.
Is that in Wales?
In Wales, yeah.
Cool.
That's right, yeah. So then he started. He thought, right, there's only one way out of this. If I can help one person, just like you said off air, if you can help one person, get through it, then that's going to motivate him. And then he started reaching out and helping people, and now he's making waves now and really helping people all over the world. So he was affected. I've got a cousin. I've got loads of people I know who've been affected badly from anxiety, depression, and gone through, really gone down to the trenches, so to speak. I had my own issues in my early 20s for a solid, say, year or two. I was struggling with depression myself, and I was on the verge of taking antidepressants and stuff, but luckily I managed to get through it. But so I was just going to say, it's a lot more common than what we think, right, Sam?
Yeah, it definitely is, man. And thanks so much for sharing some of your journey with mental health. And it goes to show that mental health doesn't discriminate. It happens every day to all sorts of different people that do different things in their life, and it's very common. 1 in 5 will suffer with a diagnosable mental illness in the next 12 months, and that number's very high. It's 20% of people. So for us, we're trying to break down the stigma to give people the confidence to speak up and seek help, because one of the biggest things that we see is males in particular don't like to share how they're feeling and their emotions, and more often than not it ends in either a crisis or it can end in suicide, and that can be stopped, that can be changed, and we're doing the best that we can to change that in more ways hopefully than one, and likewise you are too, for sharing your story and spreading your awareness. And the guys in Wales at Protectors, I mean, it's a big team, and there's so many organisations out there today that are trying to break down those stigmas, but it still exists, and we'll do our very best to make a difference where we can, but it's a very complex tool too, and it's an extremely complex subject matter that I'm forever learning. I'm a student of life, and I've been grateful, I guess, to experience on one level in my early years as a diagnosable mental illness, but also losing a number of loved ones to it. So I feel like I've got a pretty good understanding about it, but I'm always learning.
Always learning.
Always.
I know, and I was going to say about that as well, because the human brain, right, is the most complex thing on the planet anyway. So it's like, even the specialists are still trying to work out, and there's so many different factors which come into it. So as you say, it's a constant learning curve. I was going to say, so you said 1 in 5 people, just run off those stats again. So 1 in 5 people will be, you're talking about men, sorry, 1 in 5 men or people in general? 1 in 5 people in general in the next 12 months will suffer with a diagnosable mental illness. Wow, that is crazy.
In Australia alone, because it's our own backyard, we're losing 8 people a day to suicide, it's reported.
Oh my God.
Over 3,000 a year, and the numbers aren't diminishing by any means. So there's a lot of help, a lot of support out there, but in those very dark times, I'm sure you can relate to this. It's all well and good someone saying you're not alone and you'll be right and get through this. But in that very bad moment and frame of mind, those dark times, you feel very alone. And no matter what someone says or does, and no matter how close your friends and family are to you, sometimes that can make you feel even more alone. So it's a very complex area. Again, I'm learning every day, speaking to people like yourself, and it's very much all about teamwork.
100%. Yeah, let's definitely make an impact. I really want to try and step in, and as we just said, then if I can, whatever I can do to help and raise awareness, I'm open for that, open to that. So if we can even if we can get a few people, because a lot of guys listen to my podcast. I think it's predominantly male. So hopefully, even if it was, because even if you haven't been affected, the chances are somewhere along the line, you know someone who, you know what I mean? So,
and it's just about having those measures in place, having strategies in place that you can help to get back on track to start living again, so to speak. And it's not easy. It's very, very hard, and it's very challenging. And I think you just got to really have those measures in place, because it's not about changing the lows and changing the highs. It's how you get out of the lows and how you foresee what it could be like when you're back on track to living again. So a lot of the time when you're struggling, you only see a tunnel vision. But if you can start training the brain and rewiring it, so to speak, I think you can certainly be in a lot better position.
Definitely.
Forward.
We'll come to that. I was going to ask you about some tips and tricks and stuff in terms of people who are suffering with that. But I just wanted to say as well, my next question was the importance of speaking out, right? That's got to be the top of the list when it comes to actually taking that first step. So it's extremely important, right, from what I've gathered from myself and from my good friend with the Protectors. It's vital to actually tell someone about it, even if it's just one friend or something, right? You think that's an important part of it?
Look, part of Living's mantra and part of everything that we do, is it ain't weak to speak. But there's a lot of people out there saying, why don't you speak up, get help. But it's really hard for someone that's struggling about how to ask for help. What do I say? Most of the time they can't even articulate it. I know when I was struggling, it was really hard to articulate how I was feeling. So how can you actually speak up if you don't know how to articulate it? So I think what's really important is giving people the tools to be able to start those conversations.
Yes.
Checking in with your friends from time to time. I'm sure we'll go over some tips and tricks to living well. But at the end of the day, speaking up is an art, and we're not taught that in schools or workplaces, and that's something that we're working on behind the scenes at Living.
Okay. Sorry, I must have missed the part at the beginning. I didn't realise you actually you had some issues yourself as well with with kind of whatever it was, mental issues. But yeah, when I was younger and I experienced it, you hit the nail on the head then. Actually, you don't know how to articulate it, right? I've never really thought about this actually, but when I look back, I couldn't explain because they're all very unique kind of, because what I had, without going too much into it, it was like OCD. It was a OCD thought pattern, like intrusive thoughts. And I went and saw a counsellor and stuff like that, and it didn't really do much for me. And then I went and had CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, which actually worked wonders for me. That was a game changer for me. But yeah, you don't know how to articulate what you're actually thinking and feeling. It's very, very hard, isn't it? So I've never thought of it like that.
Very hard. Yeah. Most people don't know how to explain it. I think that's the biggest challenge that we face, because we're like, you'd rather speak up and suffer in silence, but people don't have sometimes an option, because they don't know that you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? Will they understand what I'm saying? I can't even articulate it, for example. How would I explain it to someone? What are they going to say if I can't articulate it? It sort of makes me look like an idiot. So all these things come into mind, and as you said, the brain's a very complex muscle. It's the most complex muscle in a human being. So I mean, it's just being about how to rewire your brain, and everyone's very different on a number of different levels. So what works for you may not work for me, and for the people who are listening, it's a myriad of different things, and it's not a one size fits all. So give yourself the patience to try and find the right fit, and you might see a psychologist or a counsellor, and if that doesn't work, that's not where it ends. You've got to. It's like finding a pair of shoes. You don't just go and get the next pair of shoes and run in them. If they don't fit, you're not going to buy them. You're going to find the best pair that fit you. It's the same thing with a doctor. It's the same thing with your help mechanisms or strategies. If it doesn't interest you and you don't get excited from it, and it doesn't make any impact, don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. Yeah. Got to change your approach, and as you say, Rome wasn't built in a day, basically. And I heard you saying actually downstairs, which I always say to people now, I'm more aware of how important the mind is. Training, I've been lifting weights for probably about 16, 17 years. I've took it to a high level, long story short, competed at a high level as a fitness model, bodybuilder.
That's cool.
Yeah. So obviously the discipline and stuff like that involved with that teach you a lot about yourself. But I was just going to say, the mind is no different to the muscles in the body, right? So the grey matter in the brain, and how the brain actually works. You need to train your brain, and you have to actively seek ways and different methods, and I don't know whether that's reading, meditation, or showing gratitude. All these different things are like tools you could use to actually to help. Yeah. So you were just saying about how you need to train your brain just like you do your muscles downstairs. Yeah. So onto the tips and tricks part, I guess. If you could give us more of a
absolutely. I mean, each to their own. I think tips and tricks. Pretty much anyone can do it. That's probably tuning in to the podcast.
Yep.
Exercise is a big thing, and you don't have to be a fitness freak or a long distance runner to get the benefits from exercise. A 15-minute, 20-minute brisk walk is exercise, and keeping it consistent. Time and time again, it's shown. Evidence has shown results that really help the way people act, perform, changes some of their brain, mechanisms and everything else over time. It's like a healthy habit, I guess. Habits take a while to get into rhythm, but once you get into that habit and routine, you can change the way that you think. You can change the way that you behave. Same thing with nutrition. I mean, you are what you eat most of the time, and I think gut health is so important. It's very underrated.
I'm glad you said that.
It's very underrated.
It's so underrated. Yeah. We'll talk about that a bit more. Yeah.
Speaking up again. Having good friends, staying connected with people. Don't try and isolate yourself. When you're struggling and you're starting to suffer, or you're starting to see a little bit of pain come into your life and maybe not acting like you used to, you start reclusing, you start getting isolated. With this, try and stay connected. Do everything that you can to stay connected, because the most important thing is connection in the human body and the human mind, and for people in particular. You've got to stay connected, because those relationships is what human beings thrive off. Absolutely, without a doubt.
Absolutely, mate.
But connection, nutrition, diet, fitness, exercise, healthy relationships, challenges, stepping out of your comfort zone, getting good night's sleep again is a huge one.
Mate, sleep.
No one.
They do not raise enough awareness, and they don't tell us in terms of the medical industry or whatever, the healthcare system. They don't stress how important it is enough. I've listened to podcasts and read books, and it is so important. Getting a minimum of 6 hours and having that good quality sleep. So, preparing, it's not necessarily just about the duration, it's the quality, right? So preparing yourself for a good sleep, and having little kind of methods in place in terms of not going on your phone, or you want, sometimes I get sucked in. You're on your phone in bed just before you go to sleep. That's killing the melatonin in your brain. But you were just saying then, sorry, just to go into you were saying about the different pillars of health, basically then, which is what I always try and explain to people. The 4 pillars of health. It's the big rocks which are important, right? So sleep, exercise, nutrition, and as you said, which is a vital component which people I don't think kind of value it enough when it comes to social connections and interactions with humans, right? Because we're losing that connection more and more with technology and social media. Sam, I'm world's worst as well. I'm not going to preach too much about it, but the amount of time you just see people just on their phone, just sucked in, walking around and not even communicating. As a species, we're kind of dying a little bit in that area, you know what I mean? So that's another thing. But the 4 pillars of health. So I was just going to say about gut health then. have you got any kind of information on that or anything that you've experienced?
I mean, for me personally, again, everyone's very different. I never used to really feel that good after eating red meat, for example, so I don't eat red meat anymore. For me, I like to eat a lot of chicken and fish and a bit more of a Mediterranean type of diet, and I really have seen a positive impact on my physical and mental health, but by getting into a new routine. And it did take a while, and it's not that I don't like red meat, it's just it didn't agree with me, and that's just me, and everyone again is very different. But I think and again, research will back this up, evidence will back this up, and there's a lot of research that suggests that healthy eating has a very, very big correlation with positive mental health. So
huge.
You can go ahead and you can exercise all you want, but if you're out of whack on the nutrition side and you're eating shit, and you're eating bad foods that are high in saturated fats and high in artificial sugars and all that sort of stuff, and refined sugars, you're not really giving yourself that great balance, and it's all about the balance. So there's no point doing one thing really well and everything else really poor. You're better off doing them all mediocre, because you're going to start seeing a lot better benefit. The same thing you in the gym, with your clients. You can go and lift weights all you want, and you can do all the training you want, but if you don't eat the right food, you're probably not going to see any difference in your physical shape.
You're not going to get anywhere near, not even anywhere near as good a results. And it all comes down to health. The healthier state you can get your body in, and your gut. I've said this on numerous podcasts in the past. But for example, all this, I'm really fascinated by the gut. I've read loads of books on it and whatnot, and they're finding that about 90 to 95% of the serotonin receptors are actually located in the gut. Now, as we both know, and maybe most of the listeners know, serotonin is responsible essentially for your happiness, libido, your overall wellness. It's a vital neurochemical which is actually produced in your gut, and about 20 different hormones produced in your gut alone. They're finding now that there's actually a direct, whereas they didn't really know this before, there's a direct link between the gut and the brain. I think it's via the vagus nerve or something.
They say you got a second brain.
Second brain? Exactly, that's right. And now they're calling it the first brain now. Exactly. Isn't it funny how, gut feeling and stuff, all these different, and you think you get a gut feeling, and all these old sayings now are kind of coming to light, and it just fascinates me. So what you eat and nutrition is going to play a huge part in it, I would say, because again, what I've said to people in the past on the podcast is, it's beyond you are what you eat. What you eat becomes a part of you. It's literally we're more bacteria than we are human, right? So the bugs you put in your body via the food sources you eat are going to be a massive factor. But you were saying about sleep, exercise, and social connections as well. In terms of the social connections and actually surrounding yourself with the right people, that's a very important thing, right? So I think you've got to, if you're going through hard times mentally, and you're struggling with depression or anxiety, whatever that is, personally from my experience, and I'm sure Sam can probably comprehend, who you surround yourself with in general is really important. But at those times in your life when you're having hard times, the people closest to you mean a lot, right?
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of speaking out.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not about quantity, it's quality all the time.
Quality, 100%,
those connections are so important, and in those dark times, the last thing you want to do is get out there and go and socialise. But I can almost guarantee most of the time when you actually do it, you will thank yourself after it. It could be an enormous challenge and a great big deal for you to do that. But when you actually do it, you look back and you're like, that really made me feel better. Social connection goes back hundreds and thousands of years to when hunters and gatherers, and we need social connection to survive as human beings 100%. In this life.
That's the only way we actually evolved as humans, isn't it?
People are everything. Yeah, absolutely. It's probably, I look back now and they're all got their own part to play, but social connection is extremely important.
100%. I'm glad you said that. What was I going to say then? So I've got a few other questions. I was going to go into something else then, but I kind of lost my train of thought a bit. So I was just going to say it's entirely up to you if you don't want to talk about this. But I'm just going to say, because there's my cousin, for example. You don't realise how bad people get when they don't talk about it and they keep it under wraps for long periods, and they're on the verge of suicide and stuff. So I've people close to me have been on the verge of suicide. Two or three people now. So I was just going to say, it's entirely up to you, but about your mate and stuff. I was going to see if you could tell people, like, just like real briefly the story about like what happened. You said obviously what happened and stuff. If you don't mind just saying, like, in terms of where was he at? Did he speak about it? Or if you don't mind talking about it.
No, it's, I will. Absolutely. I mean,
just so people can relate.
Yeah, very much so. I was at a party with Dwayne the night that he took his life, and Dwayne opened up to me and said, Webb, you know, I consider you one of my closest mates, so I want to let you know how I've been feeling. And pretty much opened up to me entirely that night about how he's been feeling in the past and, you know, some of his challenges that he's faced. And, you know, many times in that conversation that night, I'll never forget it. You know, Dwayne reassured me that things were really good as of that very moment, and that was in the past. And we'd already lost friends to suicide before that night, and we both spoke about the impact that had on a number of different people from a number of different areas and the ripple effect that it causes. And I promise you, Webb, I wouldn't do it if I did. I'd come to you first, and I'd explain to you if I need help, and we can get help together. And I thought I listened as best as I possibly could have. I thought I said everything I possibly could have said. And as someone who'd been touched by mental illness myself and via my family in a number of different ways, I was pretty wrong. Like I didn't have the answers that he was looking for. And I look back now, and the information that I know as of today, I probably would have saved his life. But I can't go back now, and I can't change what's happened. We utilise that, and I do, especially as a tipping point in my own life, because I could see it firsthand what the ripple effect had on so many people, and the devastation that it caused, and it still has caused on people's lives. I mean, you can't put a number on it. And Dwayne, life of the party, young, very talented dude. If this is happening to someone like Dwayne, and I was in a very dark place that night too. So I think probably the most important takeaway I take away from that night and from that experience in particular is two things. Self-care is number one care. If you're not looking after yourself, you can't look after anyone else. And certainly not to the extent as you could if you were doing really well yourself. Self-care is number one care. It's not selfish. You've got to look after yourself. And listening, but really listening. Difference between listening but then actively listening. Very different. And that night, I mean, two things that I've learned from that evening, and we're doing the best we can to make a difference, and that's just all we can do now. And there's thousands of those stories that are happening right now, and everyone's got a personal story or a journey that not many people know about.
No.
So what we're trying to do with Living is getting people to own their vulnerabilities, accept where they're at, but also embrace their struggles. Use them as power or strength. Don't let them shackle you, so to speak. Don't let them hold you back. Because nothing positive comes from hiding your pain. Okay, and I always say, if you're ever in doubt, reach out, because sometimes you don't get second chances to ask for help, and sometimes you don't get a second chance to offer that help either. And I look back now on that evening, I'm thinking, why didn't I ask him if he was suicidal? Did he have a plan? Because they would have been things I would ask now, because I'm a bit more educated. But again, I wasn't probably in the best frame of mind. I was scared to ask those probably really hard-hitting questions, and that's what can happen. I never got another chance to ask.
Mate, thanks very much for sharing that with us. I really appreciate that, because I know it's extremely close to your heart. So, thanks very much for that. And you were just saying about the self-care. And I always try and stress this to people, and you literally hit the nail on the head again. When it comes to self-care and people thinking they're selfish, for example, I've had in the past lots of clients who've had kids and stuff like that, and they're not looking after themselves because they think that they're putting their kids first. But as soon as they changed it round, where they started looking after themselves more, coming to the gym, eating right, just paying a little bit more attention to how they feel and actually getting themselves in a healthy state. The difference was immense in terms of, like, they said everything improved, like the relationship to their kids, their whole life changed because they put more focus on themselves, because health is, this podcast is called Optimize Your Body, right? So, health is so important, right? So to get to at least get your body, try and look after yourself, like you said, self-care and overall wellness, and it's just so important, right? So, I just wanted to, elaborate a bit on that. So,
so true.
You said that.
Very true, and no one knows everything about anything. So we're all students of life, and you've got to embrace that, and accept that you always will be a student of life, and learn. And we're just one part of the puzzle. There's many organisations out there trying to make a difference, and it's about coming together, and you've been a massive help, and hopefully we can spread the love on there and make a bit of a difference too.
Oh, definitely. That's the plan for sure. I was going to say about going a little bit into just like social media and stuff like that, and I've noticed that playing a big part in terms of, I've mentioned it a lot of times in the past on podcasts and whatnot, like social comparisons, and people compare themselves to other people on social media, scrolling through their feed and whatnot. And it gives us this kind of like false illusion that, everyone's living the perfect life in a sense, doesn't it, sometimes. And I was just wondering, I know there's so many different factors that come into it, but I always try and I use an app personally now, it's called Moments, and it tells you how long you spend on your phone. Oh, mate, it's alarming to say the least, yeah. So like, when my worst, I spent like 6.5 hours on my phone, and that's, bear in mind, I'm working full-time, training clients, training, and I'm like, how the hell did I even spend? It made me really aware of the amount of time, because you're putting yourself essentially under a state of stress, right, when you're on your phone. It's not always a bad thing, but actually kind of monitoring how long you're spending on social media, because the average person spends like 2.5 hours a day on social media, and that's just most of the time just scrolling and whatnot, not actually doing anything productive, just whatever. So do you think these kind of things are things to be aware of as well? I'm not sure if you've got to that point. I know it's probably at the bottom of the list, but
it's really important. Again, each to their own, and
absolutely, yeah.
I think there's a lot of, it's a double-edged sword. Social media can be very positive and it can be very negative.
Yes.
It depends on how you see that and how you use that in your own life to either benefit or make it a negative sort of thing. But I mean, there's a lot of good that comes out of social media, but social media for a lot of people is a snapshot of a very small part of their day. So what you see on social media versus what's actually happening in their real life is probably most of the time not true.
No, it's not true.
I say this to everyone too, is you can't compare your life to someone else's on social media or off social media. It's like comparing apples with oranges. They're two different things. Everyone's very different. 1 million likes, 1,000 likes, 100 likes, 1,000 friends, whatever it is, the little blue tick on Instagram, you're not that stuff is not what makes you happy. Yeah. If you're not happy within yourself, none of that shit will matter. So yeah, you sort of want to own your own life, you know what I mean, and just embrace what you're doing, stay in your lane. They're on their journey. Let them do what they're doing and accept that, and be nice, be friendly, and cool, great. Yeah. Don't be a hater. Great. Be really happy for everyone, because no one owes no one nothing. No one owes no one nothing. So just do you.
That's it. That's well put, mate. Another thing is distractions. I was just going to say, because it just sprung to mind then. My buddy who owns Protectors, he said a very powerful thing for him. Obviously, exercise and stuff comes into that, because that was part of the distraction. But he said finding distractions, whether that was going for a coffee with a friend or reading a book. And it was tough to read a book when you're in that state. Training and whatnot. Do you think like distractions and actually, again, there's so many variables, right? So it's tough for us to say. I'm just trying my best to appeal to the masses in a sense. I'm just trying to put myself in other people's shoes who are listening. And how, like in terms of the tips and tricks again, do you think distractions are important in terms of like finding things to do and passing your time in most cases, or have you ever come across that?
I used to do it in my own life. I still probably do to some degree. I think it can be a double-edged sword. You might be keeping busy doing things that you might enjoy, and you might be insanely doing them, but underlying that a lot of the time is an issue you probably don't really want to deal with. So you're trying to keep busy and get distracted, so you don't have time to sit in the emotions. So I think I live by three A's in my life. I try to, and it's not perfect. I'm forever learning, and I go back to the drawing board and try and rewire and everything else. But accept, acknowledge, and appreciate. Accept how you feel. Try and sit in it sometimes and just say, fuck, if it's not good, it's not good. But just accept that for what it is. Befriend it, so be a friend with it. Acknowledge it, so yeah, it's there, that's just how it is, and then appreciate it, so utilising that in your own life to do something good out of it, not something negative. Don't blame other people or blame certain things for those feelings and emotions, because there's no one's fault. Sometimes it can just happen. Just embrace it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but definitely distractions. I mean, if you're really passionate about certain things and it's a great escape for you, I use acting, for example. I'm an actor. So outside of running a non-profit, I use acting. It's a great escape for me, but I thoroughly love it. I'm very passionate about it. and it's a great release for me. It's a great balance for me, and it complements both what I'm doing on the living front and then my acting side of things. So I'm grateful. But everyone's very different.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's a very good point, actually. I'll just iterate my view on that as well, because obviously I'm very fortunate where I'm doing a job I love, right? So I'm a personal trainer. I've been a personal trainer for like well over 10 years now, so it's not something I could see myself doing, into my 40s, but I'm 30 years old now, and I'm just in the field and in the industry, the fitness industry, which is, I live, breathe and eat health and fitness, right? So it's magic for me. And training, lifting weights, that's my therapy, that's one of my, it's one of my hobbies, if you like, and it's my number one hobby, obviously. I live, breathe and eat that as well. But I was just going to say about, in terms of mental health, one of the things that's really helped me as of late, something I've been really consistent with, is showing gratitude. So I always talk about this. I actually done an episode on it recently, and just showing daily gratitude. So I read a really good book called 59 Seconds by Richard Wiseman. I'm not sure.
I've never read that one.
Oh, mate, it's really, really good. Yeah, really good. It's interesting. There's loads of studies in there and stuff on the human brain and whatnot, but just he gives you this schedule, and he says, it really works, been proven to work. Just Monday to Friday, every day is different with gratitude. So like one day will be just 3 things you're grateful for. Another day will be, for example, Tuesday today is called Terrific Tuesday. So you reminisce on a time in your mind where a really pleasant memory which brought you a lot of pleasure, and it was a really happy moment. And the difference about it, and it's called 59 seconds because most of these things you can do in a minute or two, right? It doesn't take long.
I like it.
It made a massive difference, man, because I was doing gratitude, but I wasn't very consistent with it, and that's something that's really helped me mentally. So I was going to see if you had any rituals. I know you said your acting is something you love and you're passionate about, but if you could just give us more of an insight into hobbies. I know you like to train and work out, but anything else like for gratitude, meditation?
Yeah, definitely. For me, exercise is a big part of my life. I use running, and again, back to the distractions and as an escape. Running probably almost helped save my life, many years ago. And running was a great way to keep the mind active, but also off other things. And but again, each to their own. Meditation, I don't do any meditation. I don't do any yoga at the moment, although yoga does help me, slows me down a little bit. Definitely read. I think reading is a really good tool that doesn't require a lot of energy, and you're learning as well a lot. But gratefuls is something I pride myself on. I used gratefuls every single day. Why? Grateful to have a roof over my head, for example, having breakfast, lunch and dinner whenever I want it.
That's exactly
like right. Some people don't even have that.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people in the world don't have a roof over their head. So like just the simple things in life, like be very grateful that you've got them, because a lot of the time people, you tend to take them for granted and you want the next best thing, but try and bring yourself back to where you began, why you're here, why you started. Grateful's every night for me. I don't write them down anymore, but for me, I definitely go over 3 things that I'm grateful for before I sleep, and they could just be, roof over my head, breakfast, lunch and dinner, and just grateful to have the relationships that I have in life. And maybe the next day be very different. Might be grateful that I got a chance to go for a walk down the beach today, and I was able to go for a run at this time of the day. I was able to, eat this for lunch because I'm not normally eating that. Just really basic stuff. I think it's one thing being grateful, but it's another thing actually using them to really apply them and execute them to really make a difference. Absolutely. It's easy for us to sit here and say, definitely. Be grateful and come with 3 gratefuls, write them down.
I was going to say
you've actually truly got to try and put yourself in other people's shoes. I guess for me, I really like to explore that a lot, and I'm still learning as well. But
that's a good point you just made then as well. Won't keep it for too much longer, by the way. I was just going to say about gratitude. It's easy for me to sit here and say that, but if I go back to the mental state I was in when I was suffering, and my dad, I would have laughed at that, and I would have said, so, for a lot of people, that's like kind of not one of the most important things, but it's something I'm just saying is something that helps me. But also, you said about learning. So I always say to people, the 3 G's. So gratitude or grateful, growing as well. So learning. So like you said. Even if you were to read a few pages of a book each night, you're gonna. I think if you read like a chapter of a book a night, you'd probably read something like 36 books a year, or something along those lines. And learning and actually occupying your mind and growing, it's so good. I mean, it literally gives you purpose in life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's just vital. Like, we live in a world nowadays which is full of information, right? We've got more information available to us than ever. So I think just having the tools you have available to you and just reading the odd book, it's very therapeutic doing that. And also just giving as well, right? So that's something I really want to work on, is actually start giving more now. Anything, it could be something simple like I'm buying someone a coffee. It could be just like, you might find that a bit weird, but smiling at someone in the street, you know what I mean? Just
can change
simple, it can change someone's life. Or, just you see a homeless person on the street, it's not even taking them in the shop to buy them stuff, which I would like to start doing. Just speaking to them and just like you said, showing compassion and actually getting into other people's bodies, and just that alone makes you a lot more grateful, right?
Yeah, and grounded too.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
Grounded for sure. Yeah. Just to wrap it up, mate, I was going to say, so you said earlier on, 2 top tips was listening and self-care.
Yeah.
I was going to see if you had maybe like one more, if you could just go over those two again, and just maybe one more, just
absolutely.
Top takeaways.
Biggest takeaways is self-care is number one care. Don't think you're selfish. Don't think you shouldn't be looking after yourself before you look after anyone else. You should be looking after yourself, because that means you'll be able to look after someone else better. Listening non-judgmentally, first and foremost. So listen non-judgmentally. And probably third is, if you're ever in doubt, reach out. Like, if you just don't know something, or something doesn't feel right, or you're not comfortable or something, just reach out, because what's the worst thing that can happen? You'll at least learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you'll find out, and you'll be one step closer to, getting to that answer that you wanted. I think if you're hesitant, you don't reach out, and if you're a bit in doubt about something, you don't reach out, it can cost you a lot. So I think if you're ever in doubt, reach out. It's very important.
Thank you very, very much, mate. I'll probably make it a wrap there. There's probably more questions, but maybe we can link up another time soon. I'm sure you've dropped a lot of handy advice there for the listeners. So really appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and thanks, Marty, for having me, man. I appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for tuning in, guys.